Habits influence your life. Your destiny is determined by the things you do consistently without ever realizing it, and every choice you make, action you take, and outcome you encounter is a mirror of the habits you've developed over time. Success comes from having positive habits. The problem is that most people underestimate their power and believe that if things get bad enough, they will just stop. However, bad habits do not simply go away. They are wired into your mind, reinforced by repetition, strengthened by years of practice, and if you do not take control, they will control you. Bad habits will destroy it. They drain your energy, steal your time, pull you in the wrong direction, and make it harder and harder to break free. Bad habits are cunning. They don't always appear harmful at first. They may begin as innocuous decisions or momentary pleasures, but they gradually gain traction, integrate into your identity, form difficult-to-break patterns, and eventually mold your life into something you never intended. As you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. If your habits are strong, success becomes automatic. But if they are weak, they will break you before you even realize what's happening. Therefore, breaking bad habits is not just about stopping something. It's also about replacing it, rewiring your mind, changing your surroundings, and positioning yourself for success. How can you take charge of your life before your habits take over? There are 5 essential tactics to help you break bad habits before they destroy you. These strategies will help you stop destructive behaviors and replace them with powerful new habits that will propel you to success. The first step in breaking bad habits is to identify the underlying. Most people attempt to break a habit by concentrating on the behavior itself, but the behavior is only the surface, just the symptom. If you do not delve deeper and understand what is driving the habit, you will always struggle to break it, because habits do not exist in isolation. They are connected to emotions, triggers, routines, and deeply ingrained patterns. These are not short-term fixes, temporary solutions, or quick fixes. They are long-term strategies designed to rewire your mind, reshape your behavior, and rebuild your future, because once you understand how habits work, consider the behaviors you find most difficult, such as procrastination, unhealthy eating, negative self-talk, wasting time, or avoiding obligations. The majority of negative behaviors are not impulsive. Rather, they are reactions to underlying stress, boredom, fear, or insecurity. These emotions are what drive behavior more than anything else. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. Rather, you procrastinate because you're avoiding discomfort. For this reason, simply trying to break a habit rarely works. You may resist for a few days or even weeks, but unless you address the underlying cause, the habit will... Willpower alone is insufficient. You must replace the need that the habit is fulfilling. To begin, pay attention to what happens just before the habit occurs. What are you feeling? Where are you? Who are you with? And are you tired, stressed, or bored? No. Once you identify the pattern, you can begin to change it, because removing the trigger will remove the urge, but awareness is only the first step. You must also find a better replacement. Every habit exists because it fulfills a purpose. Even bad habits provide comfort. When you try to break a bad habit without replacing it, your mind will fight you. You can't just cut something out. You have to reroute it. Stress is making your bad behavior worse. What can you do? If insecurity is the root of your conduct, how can you develop confidence without engaging in self-defeating behavior? If boredom is the cause, how can you pass the time productively? Giving your mind a better alternative that satisfies the same demand without the negative effects is the aim. For instance, if you go for junk food when you're worried, replace it with movement. Set a timer for 5 minutes, take a walk, stretch, or do something physical if you delay because you feel overwhelmed. If you waste time on distractions because you lack motivation, create an environment that makes it easier to focus. Decide on a due date. Take out accountability is added by temptations. Saying, I need to stop doing this is insufficient. You also need to establish a new path and provide yourself with a different answer. One that is purposeful and in line with your objectives, one that makes you stronger rather than weaker. And the truth is that most individuals overlook the fact that breaking a habit is about consistency rather than perfection. You will make mistakes and revert to old habits, but the aim is not to never make a mistake. The objective is to catch yourself more quickly and get back on track right away. Most people fail because they believe that one mistake means they have failed completely. But success is about staying committed, even when you make mistakes, and viewing each one as a lesson, rather than a failure. Cool. Therefore, when you make a mistake, ask yourself what caused it. What can I do differently the next time? And what is a better way to respond? Because every time you catch yourself, you get stronger. Every time you choose the better option, you reinforce a new habit. And every time you correct the pattern, you get closer to breaking free. The first step to breaking any bad habit is understanding why it exists in the first place. Determine the underlying reason and pinpoint the trigger. The second strategy to break bad habits is to change your environment. Habits are not created in a vacuum. They are shaped by your physical space, the people you interact with, the routines you follow, the things you expose yourself to, and your surroundings. If you do this repeatedly, the habit loses its power, you take control, you shift the pattern, and you break free. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings control them. They assume that habits are purely a matter of willpower, that if they just try harder, they can stop destructive behaviors. But willpower is weak compared to the power of cues in your environment. If you are surrounded by triggers that reinforce your bad habit, you will keep falling into the same cycle, no matter how badly you want to stop. Think about the habits you want to break. What is in your environment that keeps pulling you back into them? If you want to stop procrastinating, but your workspace is full of distractions. Setting yourself up to fail if you want to stop wasting time, but you're not planning 1 minute of your day. You are reinforcing the very habit you are trying to break. Your environment is either working for you or against you. And the key to breaking bad habits is to design an environment that makes a habit harder to do, because if something is inconvenient, you are less likely to do it. If a bad habit requires extra effort, your brain will naturally resist it. Begin by determining the factors that cause your habit to occur, and the location where it typically occurs. What items, locations, or people are connected to it? What trends keep coming up? Once you identify these indicators, make tactical adjustments. Reorganize your area and get rid of the temptations. Generate conflict between the habit and yourself. Avoid keeping junk food in your home if you want to reduce your intake of unhealthy foods. If you want to cut back on TV viewing, unplug it after each usage so that it takes more effort to switch it back on. Small environmental changes can make a significant difference. Simple does not imply that it is easy to do, but it is. Simple, but eliminating cues is only part of the battle. You must also introduce new cues. New cues that reinforce the habits you want to cultivate. For example, if you want to read more, place a book where you regularly waste time. If you want to work out consistently, set out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to wake up earlier, set your alarm across the room. Forcing you to get out of bed makes healthy habits easier and bad habits more difficult, since behavior follows your mind will always choose. Therefore, take the path of least resistance. The easiest option is your bad habit. you will continue to fall into it. But if the easiest option is the habit you want to create, and you will begin adjusting your here's something most people do, without even thinking about it. Overlook the influence of other individuals in your area. It is not simply about physical, it is about the people you surround yourself with, as well as actual stuff. Whether you know it or not, your habits are influenced by the habits of those. If you spend time with people who make excuses, you will start making them too. Arguments if you are surrounded by people who do not have discipline. Your discipline you will suffer if the people in your life reinforce undesirable habits. It is nearly impossible to break free from them since we replicate the habits of others around us. Even when we do not, this is why changing your surroundings frequently implies changing who you accept into it. If you are serious about overcoming bad behaviors, you must shield yourself from those who pull you in. The wrong path does not mean cutting everyone off, but it does mean being intentional about who you spend the most time with. Surround yourself with individuals who push you forward, press you to a higher standard, and live the kind of life you want to establish because you're around people who represent the habits you want. Their behavior will begin to influence yours positively. Wait, and this is crucial. You do not need to locate perfect people. You only need to set yourself in surroundings where healthier behaviors are the norm, and join a group coincides with your goals. Spend time in places that support the identity you want to establish. Put yourself in situations when the conduct you choose is natural, because what feels normal becomes your behaviors, are a mirror of your environment, and you want to stop harmful habits before they break you. You must charge of that surroundings. Remove the triggers, make the bad habit inconvenient, and make the good. The easiest solution is to surround yourself with individuals that elevate you rather than hold you back, because when your surroundings aligns with your vision, breaking bad habits are no longer a battle. They become okay. The third technique to break unhealthy habits is to reprogram your identity. If you perceive as a person with negative habits, you will continue to struggle. If you believe you lack discipline, you will continue to prove it. You are correct about yourself, since every action you take reflects your identity. Hold in your mind, and as long as your identity is associated with your bad habits, you The majority of people try to change their habits by focusing on behavior alone. They make goals, try to compel themselves to behave differently, and push through willpower, but if deep down they still perceive themselves as the same. Someone who is lazy, if someone is inconsistent and constantly reverts to old routines, no matter of endeavor will achieve long-term change. They still regard themselves as the same guy, someone who's lazy, unreliable, and always falls. If you return to old routines, no amount of effort will produce long-term results. Change your habits are not simply what you do, but a manifestation of who you are. Believe you are, and until you modify your identity, you will always fight to break away from harmful habits, since your subconscious mind will fight to keep you in alignment with the person you believe you are. Consider the distinction between these two assertions. I'm attempting to quit smoking, and I'm not a smoker. The first statement implies difficulty and effort, implying that the person still sees themselves as a smoker, but is attempting to reject the second statement is a declaration of identity. It eliminates internal conflict, matches the individual's self-image with the desired build, and this is the key. Your actions will always follow your identity. If you regard yourself as undisciplined, you will continue to make undisciplined decisions. Yourself as someone who has no control, you will act accordingly. However, if you start seeing yourself as someone who is strong, focused, and in control, you will begin making decisions that reflect that. So, how can you reprogram your identity and modify the way you see yourself so that your behaviors come Follow one of the fastest methods is through tiny, constant wins when you perform an action that coincides with your new identity. You reinforce it every time you follow through on a promise. When you prove to yourself that you create evidence. Competent. The belief grows stronger. Most individuals think identity. Change occurs initially, and they must believe they are a specific type of person before they can act like that person. But the opposite is true for you. Instead of waiting to believe, you act your way into belief by taking tiny steps that reinforce the new identity, and over time, those modest steps affect the way you see yourself. If you want to become someone who exercises consistently, begin with something small. Do 10 push-ups every morning. If you want to become productive, eliminate just distraction from your environment. If you want to become someone who eats healthy, replace one bad food choice each day with a better one. These simple activities may appear trivial, yet they are powerful because they generate evidence, and the brain believes what it has proof for every time you execute an action that matches with your new identity. Every time you repeat it, you rewrite the script in your mind. And here's something even more powerful. Language reinforces identity. The way you talk about yourself influences how you see yourself. Thus, if you consistently repeat, "I always procrastination, I can never stick to anything, I have no self-control," and you are reinforcing that identity, and your brain will work hard to make sure you stick to what you believe. But if you begin saying, I am the type of person that follows through, I make disciplined choices, I don't let poor habits govern me, you're educating your mind to accept a new version of yourself. Once your thoughts accept it, and your behaviors will easily follow. Most people allow their past determine their identity, believing that because they have suffered with unhealthy behaviors for years, but your past does not define you. Your decisions do, and at any time you can choose to adopt a new identity and stop viewing yourself as someone who struggles. You can choose to see yourself as someone who takes control is the key to breaking bad habits. Not simply changing what you do. Changing who you are shifts your identity, creating little wins that speak differently about yourself. And if you start picturing yourself as the sort of person who does not allow harmful habits to dominate, habits will loosen their grip on you next. The fourth technique to stop undesirable habits is to interrupt the pattern. Every habit follows a loop that includes a trigger, an action. And if you do not disturb the loop, you will be rewarded, and the habit will continue to run. Autopilot. But if you can disrupt the sequence even for a time, you generate opening to modify most unhealthy habits feel automatic to you. You scarcely see things happening until they are already in action. Eat something bad before realizing it. Daydreaming, procrastinating, ignoring the task at hand, and by the time you recognize what's going on, you're already deep in the reason this occurs is that habits are wired into your brain as quickly. Decisions bypass conscious cognition. They follow a pattern that has been repeated so many times that your thoughts does not even question it. Which is why most people struggle to stop, because by the time they know what's going on, is already in control. But here's the trick if you can. If you interrupt the pattern before it is completed, you can regain control. You can catch yourself in the moment, before the action completely takes place, giving oneself the power to Physical disturbance is one of the quickest methods to create something unique. Change your stance, move your body, and do something unexpected, since the brain is programmed to. When you physically interrupt the flow of a habit, you build momentum. A moment of awareness, just enough to take action and change. If you keep thinking about watching TV, rise up and stroll to another. If you have the need to nibble out of boredom, drink a glass of water first. If you notice yourself becoming sidetracked, clap your hands loudly and shout stop. Literally, shock your system out of autopilot. These minor disruptions may appear tiny, but they are powerful because they awaken you from unconscious behavior. And once aware, you can replace the habit with something better, since changing a habit is not simply about quitting, but also about redirecting. If you remove a habit without replacing it, your mind will look for anything else to fill the void. However, if you purposely introduce a new reaction, you gain control over the, for instance, if you have a procrastinating habit, the instant you catch if you are hesitant, count down from 5 and take immediate action. Do not give up. Give yourself time to negotiate if you have a habit of negative self-talk. Recognize a negative idea and speak something good out loud to change it. If you have a habit of stress eating, replace it with a brisk stroll. Take 10 slow breaths and physically step away from the circumstance. And here's the key. The sooner you interrupt the habit, the weaker it becomes the longer you let it to continue. The stronger it gets each time you catching it early allows you to retrain your brain. Increase awareness. Gain control, and over time, you reach a point where the habit loses its power completely. However, interruption alone is insufficient. You must also eliminate temptations that perpetuate the habit, because if something is always within reach, your brain will default to it. What? If junk food is in the house, you will eat it. Show is a button away. You will squander time if distractions are around, will keep postponing, and develop negative habits. Inconvenient if you tend to squander time watching TV. Unplug it after every use. Turning it back on involves extra effort if you want to reduce clutter. Don't buy food in the first place, since when something is more difficult to do, you are less likely to do it. But here's something even worse powerful. Employ commitment devices to block harmful habits in advance. A commitment device is a mechanism, system that keeps you from making a terrible decision in the first place. It eliminates willpower from the equation, setting up an automated penalty for specific behaviors. And here's the reality. Awful. Habits detest friction. The more difficult you make them, the less influence they have over you, and the easier it is to make good habits. The more readily they will replace the old ones. So the next time you notice yourself falling into a terrible habit, stop and ask how I might interrupt this behavior. Can I disturb this moment? Easier, since the more you interrupt the pattern, the weaker it becomes. And once you weaken it enough, breaking free is the 5th technique to break poor habits is to establish accountability for most individuals. Fail to change because they rely solely on themselves and create goals in secret. They make quiet pledges to themselves. This time will be unique. But it is too simple to break harmful habits, flourish in secret, survive in isolation, and grow in dark where there is no compulsion to change. But the moment accountability is introduced into the equation, everything changes when you make a public commitment. You raise the stakes and place yourself in a situation where failing is more than just a personal disappointment. Consider this. When you set a goal in your mind, it's easy to manufacture excuses. But when you tell someone else, and it suddenly feels true because accountability pushes you. To act in accordance with your words adds a degree of social pressure, and that using pressure to your advantage is one of the simplest ways to create accountability by finding a companion who will check in on you. Someone who will call you out if you slip. Someone who will not accept your excuses. This is not simply a friend who listens to you talk about your troubles. This is someone who holds you to your word, someone who will challenge you, and someone who will not allow you if you are trying to break a negative habit. Tell someone you trust. Be precise. State I am determined to eliminating this behavior, and I want you to hold me accountable. If I slip, I need you to call. If I create excuses, I need you to remind me of why. The sheer act of speaking it out loud creates the commitment. Genuine, but accountability goes beyond simply telling someone. It is about creating actual repercussions, because when there is something at stake, your mind takes taking change seriously is where commitment comes in. Contracts come into play. A commitment contract is a personal agreement between repercussions for failure are an organized strategy to hold oneself accountable by assigning a cost to your bad behavior, such as if you are trying to stop squandering time on diversions. Establish a rule that if you procrastinate on an important assignment, you have to spend $50 to a cause you despise if you want to quit eating junk food. If you eat unhealthy snacks, commit to doing 50 push-ups for each one. Oh. Trying to wake up earlier, make an accountability rule that states that if you press snooze, you must contribute money to charity is the key to creating actual suffering for breaking the habit. Because there are consequences, your brain will think carefully before acting. When you know there is a cost, you are less inclined to succumb to temptation. Pay, but accountability is not only about sanctions, but also about tracking your progress, since what is measured gets improved. And if you are not recording your habits, you would not know. If you are actually making progress, begin by establishing a habit tracker. Every day you successfully avoid a negative behavior, mark it down, and build a streak. Keep track of your progress in a visible manner, because when you see a streak building, you will not want to break it. When you have proof that you are improving, it gets simpler to keep. For example, if you want to quit smoking, keep a calendar where you mark every day you go without a smoke. If you are attempting to cut back on watching TV, measure how much time if you're trying to be more disciplined with your time, keep track of your accomplishments every week. Evening active tracking accomplishes two things. First, it raises awareness. Therefore, you cannot ignore your conduct. Second, it creates momentum, because once you notice, you want to keep progressing, and the longer you go without slipping, the stronger your new habit gets. Here's something even more. A powerful reward yourself for keeping on track. Because breaking a habit only feels like a sacrifice that you will eventually give up. Let's establish a reward scheme if you avoid your bad behavior for a week. If you avoid your bad behavior for a week. If you are consistent for a month, do something worthwhile, enjoyable, that promotes your success. Give yourself positive reinforcement so breaking the habit seems like an accomplishment, not just, here's the final truth. Responsibility must be long-term. People stay accountable for a few weeks, but the initial motivation fades. They soften the regulations, stop checking in, accept minor excuses, and before they realize it, they're right back where they started. If you're serious about breaking a bad habit before it breaks your responsibility, must become a lifestyle, and you must follow your visible. You must remain linked to individuals who hold you to a higher standard to succeed. It's important to evaluate progress, reward consistency, and have something at stake. Without responsibility, leaving becomes unavoidable. Option success? Breaking bad habits requires a strategy, not just willpower or temporary motivation. Habits shape your future and can take control if not addressed. To break free, identify the root cause, address the symptom, change your environment, and reprogram your habits. When you recognize bad habits and replace them with better ones, you gain strength and prove to yourself that you are in control of your life. Your habits shape your life. So start here to change it.